Bad news guys, UEFN might be delayed. Creative 2.0 update number 2, December 2022. In this update, various programming language finally showcased Fracture Chapter 3 end event. Was it made in UEFN? Chapter 4, Battle Royale running on Unreal Engine 5.1. UEFN might be delayed again. Unreal Engine 2022 year in review failed showcase of UEFN. UE Learning tab updated with many meta sounds and other learning sources. Quick tour of 3 December UE Marketplace assets and Fortnite Creative updates 23.00, 23.10, and some leaks and news from what we know for past couple of weeks. I'm gonna split this video into two parts. In this one, we're gonna focus solely on various programming language, failed showcase of UEFN, and what we learned about it from end of year presentation. So subscribe to get notified when the video is gonna come up. If you're lost and you don't understand certain topics I'm discussing in here, go and watch my video called What is Fortnite Creative 2.0, UEFN and Unreal Verse, where I'm explaining a couple of important parts of Creative 2.0 update. So Verse programming language review. Around 8 December of 2022, Verse programming language developed by Epic was revealed finally. Public showcase and presentation documents were published, and the presentation took place at the Haskell Exchange 2022, where Simon Peyton-Jones, who is one of the contributors to Verse, but also one of the creators or contributors to Haskell programming language, showcased Verse programming language with the presentation and links to the materials available for public view. Fantastic news for all who were interested in this new programming language like Epic is developing, and it is important for those who want to use UEFN because it is going to be shipped with UEFN in some way, and I'm gonna elaborate upon this a little bit more, because during the presentation we learned that Verse is going to be released in a couple of stages and thus be divided into a couple of different parts, or certain features of the language are going to be abstracted into like different parts for those who are going to be much more interested in those core tenets of the language, and those who are going to be using it with the UEFN, and those who are going to be using this as a full language. So let's go and see what we know very briefly about Verse right now. Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic Games, was thinking about new programming language that can conquer the mainstream for actually a very long time. Back in 2005, he gave a presentation about the next mainstream programming language from the game developer's perspective. He used his knowledge of game engines programming and games production, since first versions of Unreal Engine were written by him, and in this presentation he outlined few key areas of problems plaguing development like performance, modularity, reliability, and concurrency, predicting that progress in computing performance will grow need for a new programming language. In presentation, he shares few thoughts on his findings, believing that new language should not scare mainstream programmers and handle well potential failures early, giving strong runtime safety guarantees. As he describes, Haskell programming language has a few concepts fulfilling some of his criteria, but the syntax was scary and few other core assumptions will be needed. So fast forward to 2020, Epic announced working on Verse, this new programming language stemming from years of thinking and finally taking the shape on paper. Then Epic hired many famous Haskellers like Simon Peyton-Jones and Leonard Augustsson to work on Verse, which describes in interview it isn't a Haskell clone, and it is informed by functional programming and imperative programming and game programming and logic programming. There's a lot of going on in Verse. And Verse presentation shows it borrows some concepts from logical programming language like Prolog, short for programming in logic, and from Haskell, which is purely functional language rooted in lambda calculus. Also, some of you might not know that Unreal Engine has a scripting language called Skockum Script, and it's developed by Agog Labs, later acquired by Epic Games, and we know whole team is now working on Verse. Going through all Verse snippets from 2020 presentation and those new materials, one can see the clear difference in implementation details to what we saw during official language presentation just a couple of days ago. So we will come back to this later. In presentation showcasing Verse in this year, we also learned overall motivation behind Verse. So the language for the metaverse, scalable to running code, for use by millions of programmers supporting billions of users. Whew. But now let's sum this up in context of UEFN. Really, Verse's work on, let's call them, 3 separate branches, and thus, as we learned, will be released in 3 different stages. So based on them, the core Verse code, where those famous Haskellers and other prominent contributors like Tim himself distilled the core concepts of the Verse language to the lambda calculus, specifically called Verse calculus, a way to describe core language features in formal logic system for expressing computation possible by language. So basically formal like math or code theorists. PDF document called the Verse calculus, a core calculus for functional logic programming, was released, which describes this in the detail. This is the foundation of Verse language core workings. But then, on the other side of the spectrum lies Maxverse code. So this is the big vision language team describes. Glorious, open source, full language, transactional, which answers the concurrency issues, extensible to grow over time, safe with strong interop guarantees, and learnable at first language. Potentially released as a standalone language outside of even Unreal Engine, which team suggests needs at least a year to get from so-called shipverse code, as Simon Payton describes in his presentation showcasing verse, which lies somewhere in between those two extremes. This is a verse scripting subset of Maxverse, somehow based on Coreverse, and this part is the verse we know as potentially one to be shipped with UEFN, the Unreal editor for Fortnite. How much of a Maxverse or Coreverse like it will be, we don't really know. But as I mentioned, those snippets from 2020 reveal differ a bit from what we saw in the recent presentations. And the theory is that those snippets, those old showcase, are some parts of Skockum script transformed into verse, or it is still some early version of verse, which really was specifically prepared to work with Unreal and Fortnite and had some features which are not going to be present at Maxverse release. And also, as we know, there is this script device which somehow is going to be working with verse. So my theory is that we are going to be having the shipverse scripting language, which is going to be called verse scripting, which is going to be somehow working with the script device, and very possible we're going to get visual scripting that is going to be working at the runtime of Fortnite Creative. So basically just in-game, who knows, maybe somehow accessible through script device, allowing us to use visual scripting just like blueprints are working in Unreal to script behavior and use devices this way. Very possible. Just as I previously said, Halo Infinity Forge is working like this on consoles, and this will allow console players to use scripting without even have to be writing physically script. They would just connect the nodes that will be available for them, which is super handy, and that would be awesome because possibly this is going to be also working in UEFN, and Unreal is very heavily rooted in blueprints, and this makes just a lot of sense. Besides this, Epic was posting a lot of hiring posts for verse visual scripting. So to sum this up, I think in UEFN, shipverse is going to be called verse scripting, and this is going to be scripting language abstracted from all this verse programming language plus possible visual scripting of some kind of blueprints or something like this. Now the dates. Verse Calculus was showcased at 8 December of 2022 at Haskell Exchange, and Team Sweeney said that we need more than a year for Maxverse to be prepared for release, so this is probably around 2024 with possible delays. Now, the UEFN was supposed to be released at the end of January 2023. Epic CEO confirmed at least 2 times this in a tweet, but the problem is that unfortunately there are possible delays incoming. As you may know, Unreal Engine hosts Inside Unreal Year in Review livestream each year to sum up what happened the past year. So in 2020, during the Year in Review presentation, UEFN was showcased for the first time, and Verse also. And this year, we were told by Epic Games that on December 15th, during this Year in Review presentation, both UEFN, Unreal Editor for Fortnite, and Verse programming language are going to be showcased. Community was really hyped. Livestream only on Twitch peaked at 16,000 people, which is one of the most viewed streams that I saw to date on Epic Games channel. And so many people were waiting and spamming chat with UEFN and Verse, but unfortunately, UEFN presentation could not take place because of the technical difficulties with running UEFN. So as Tim Sweeney said, the day before, UEFN presentation demo was working, but at this day, it couldn't be launched up and fixed to be working on during the stream. And we learned this during the stream, unfortunately, that they couldn't fix this thing. So too much hype and waiting, we did not see any showcase of UEFN nor any showcase of Verse. Team Sweeney only alluded in like very general terms about UEFN and what's coming, but without really details about how it's going to be working, what is going to be possible, what is going to be even shown in a demo, or when could it be fixed. They did not have any pre-recorded materials or presentation to show instead of the demo. There was just basically nothing physical that we could see in our own eyes, or any discussion about this. Even the devs that were supposed to be talking about this weren't talking about this. Just team in general terms described that it is coming, it's going to be awesome, and that there are some kind of problems because what we did learn from this are actually quite pessimistic informations. So the first date of release of UEFN was about end of 2022, around the December, without specifying which exactly date that will be. But the last month, as you'll learn from my previous first Creative 2.0 update, we did learn that the release date is going to be moved from this end of 2022 to end of January 2023. Now, During this live stream summary of a 2022 year in review, Tim Sweeney said that he is unsure about the end of January 2023 release date of UEFN, joking that somewhere in between 31st of January and 90th of January there is a possible release of UEFN. And the reason why actually all those delays happened and might happen again is because of the technical difficulties, which were definitely apparent, as you can see, during the live stream. So there is a big problem, and we might have to be waiting for UEFN even longer. And unfortunately, there are no more informations about anything related to UEFN, as Epic stuff went for Christmas break and are going to be coming back in New Year. Well, we're gonna have to wait. Unfortunately, not only about any new informations, but also for this demo to be shown to us again. There are no informations about when could it be fixed, and if we even are going to see this, and if there's going to be any showcase of this again, or at least recorded videos about this thing. The only thing that he confirmed was that we're gonna be able to import models from assets creation packages like Blender, 3D Max, Photoshop, and that it will work on PC without specifying what is going to happen with the consoles. But all those findings that we had to this point ends up on UEFN working only on PC. There were never official confirmation about UEFN working on consoles. Consoles might get, as I said, maybe some kind of scripting ability, but I think that this is all. Your standalone editor is not going to be working on consoles. There were no confirmations about this whatsoever. So there were no new informations about Creative 2.0 and the other aspects of it, like creators economy, accessibility, anything actually else. So we're just gonna have to wait, and fingers crossed that this demo is going to be able to be fixed. And meantime, we're just gonna have to focus on learning Unreal, enjoying the new map and new features which did come with the new chapter, which we are going to discuss in the second part of this video, because I wanted to focus on UEFN and very specifically because two kind of big things still happened even though we didn't see UEFN. And the rest of the information from December are going to be split in the second video, which are going to cover some more leaks from UEFN, Fortnite Creative Update version 23.00 and 23.10, 3 December UE Marketplace assets, UE Learning tab updated with many meta sounds and audio learning resources, this new chapter, and Fracture, Chapter 3 and event, which could be made in UEFN. So subscribe to be notified when this new video is going to be released, and see you in the second part of this video.